And welcome to RealAg Live, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. Hope you're having yourself a great Friday. It is hard to believe how fast this week has gone. And we started this a couple weeks ago where we have some fun on Fridays. We're going to call it Freestyle Friday. We have no guest booked. We don't need a guest. We can have a conversation, me and the audience, and that's what we're going to do here today. I've got a bit of a topic in mind. We're going to get to that in a second. If you want to participate in today's discussion, you can put your comment or your question in the comment box, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. Please join in the fun, and let's just lay back on a Friday and enjoy the breeze, so to speak. Things are warming up, at least in Western Canada for sure. The deep freeze is over. Still hearing it's a little bit chilly in Eastern Canada, but we'll take the warmer weather. And whatever happens from a weather perspective in Canada this weekend, it is better than Texas. That's all I know. That is a crazy situation. Yeah, Brian. So Brian Voth asked a good question. No, I am not going to be doing any rapping today. No rapping. Probably no singing either. I can barely hold a tune. No, and Jim, I could not use Friday Free for All. That was taken by AgriTalk. So yes, we had. There's only so many combinations of words here. So I'm monopolizing Freestyle Friday here on RealAg Live. Good stuff. I love just audience participation. Fantastic. That's what makes this this show RealAg Live kind of I think so much fun. Is there's a lot of companies and other publishers doing webinars, and what you find out is that a lot of these webinar presentations are totally pre-recorded. Well, we don't do that here. We don't do death by PowerPoint. We just have conversations and we have some fun and kind of all learn together. So I really do appreciate you tuning in today with me. I want to talk about mentorship, and I was kind of inspired. Yeah, well, it would be on Wednesday. I had a conversation with somebody I would consider my mentor, and it kind of inspired me to play a few clips for you here today in regards to mentorship. And what was neat about the conversation that we had is I think in some ways it defines what mentorship is based on some of the clips that I gathered, but in other ways that it kind of doesn't. We'll get to that in a sec. And the conversation, the person challenged me. They also wanted my input. It was a really two-way learning experience. We talked about better ways to do things in agriculture and really kind of challenging some of the ways that things are being done currently. And most of all, after the hour discussion that we had, we hung up the phone, and I felt inspired on that topic and pretty much any other one. I was just ready to. It was unfortunate it was at the end of the day because I was just ready to take on the day. And I think that's kind of what sometimes you do need, that kind of kick in the pants where you're working hard, your head's down, and you're grinding it out, plowing, basically doing what you have to do in your business, whether that's a media company or that's a farm business. And you just sort of get into a bit of a way of doing something. And sometimes you do very, very much need that kick in the pants. And Brian says, yes, pre-recorded and dull. Like, aren't they? A lot of those webinars that people are attending. We're trying to go a bit of a different path here at realagriculture.com for sure. Okay, what I'm going to do for you is play you a clip from 2014. Severely embarrassing. When I sent this clip to Jay earlier today to do the cut, I just said, thank goodness we cut the beginning of the interview because it's absolutely horrid from my perspective in my performance in this interview. I look like a real goof. My hair is not good, and neither are my glasses. I'm not sure what was happening in 2014. This was a conversation that I had with Fran Burr at the time she was with Cargill. She was speaking at the Advancing Women conference, and she was talking about mentoring. Okay. And this is from a female context, but I think, honestly, this fits both genders for sure because mentoring fits for, of course, everybody. So let's listen to my conversation with Fran Burr, as embarrassing as I am, from 2014.
Well, the idea of mentorship is was recurring support groups, I think, is one of the ones that was just mentioned, and different ways of wording it, but how do you get that coach? And I've always been a believer in a coach, whether really quite formal or informal, but just having someone that you can talk to. And I have to admit that most of my coaches have been men, and I've had no issues with that. But I think that that's a theme that you really see in this conference right now, is how important mentors have been, or coaches have been. The other thing I think is just the women who come into agriculture and stay. If you talk to some of the women in the networking opportunities here, they may not still be with the same company, some of them are, but they have stayed in agriculture, and they've just found different things to do at different times in their life. Whatever's going on in their life, they found things that they can do to keep them in agriculture. And I think that is just an outstanding accomplishment in agriculture, where you can get in and you can continue, depends, whether your children are in my case, in their late 20s or 30s, right, or you've got a 2-year-old, you can still be in agriculture. And so I think that's as I talk to women, I really am pleased to see that they're not leaving agriculture just because they have things happening in their life that they have to do as well as their jobs.
Yeah. So you mentioned mentorship. Who are some of those mentors that helped you or inspired you through your career?
Well, I said they were all men, but I have to admit there was, at the very, very beginning, there was a woman who was a professor at the faculty, and she was just great. She had great insights into who I was, which is, number one, if you're going to be a mentor, you better have a good insight into the person you're mentoring. So she was fabulous that way. And then after that, tended to be people in the organizations where I worked. Again, because they see you, right? They see you perhaps more than others do on the outside. So, you can have very successful mentors from outside your organization, but where I worked, I tended to find a person that I was comfortable with.
You mentioned getting the right mentor. I would imagine for a lot of people, as they're seeking guidance, whether it's internally, externally, the organization, or the on the farm, it can be a challenge finding the right mentor.
Yeah, it is, and it's not always in everyone's comfort zone to be able to open up to someone. I have, and I find that you may be a mentor for someone only for a particular time in their career, and then they can move on. There's someone else they need, and I think that's why I'm kind of an advocate of not just having one mentor, and that's the person you sort of go.
Kind of putting your eggs all in one basket.
Yeah, and you change, right? And they change, and your needs change. So I think keep your mind open to looking for that person. And, more often than not, when you approach someone and say, can I, it would be okay if we, we had this mentor or mentee relationship, and they're, most of the time people are really willing to do that. And then, as I said earlier, a lot of organizations now have formal programs where they match people. It sounds like dating or something, but you actually, say, this is what I'm looking for in a mentor, and here's a mentor that would be a good match. That's
one disadvantage that probably some farmers have, is there's not those sort of established programs. For a young farmer that's looking for a mentor, that could be a challenge because usually it's dad or mom, right?
Yeah. Which I can appreciate it. It's more, but so many things about being on the farm can you don't quite have that same network, right? And that's where it becomes more difficult, but it's still. It's coming to occasions like this. Like yesterday, we had a small gathering for lunch, and two women from entirely different areas were talking. They're both farm women. One's in dryland Saskatchewan, and the other in Alberta. And they were talking about the issues that they're having on their farm. And so I think that you have to put yourself out there, and you have to find these opportunities in farm gatherings and different association groups and stuff to find that person if you can.
The neat thing about this conference that I have seen right away is that I go to a lot of different farm shows, and a lot whether it's livestock or cropping, there's a lot of people here that necessarily would never be at the same conference together otherwise, right? Because they're a dairy person, they're a cattle person, or they're crop inputs. And this has really been a real cross-section of people brought together.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's the other fascinating thing. It's the common denominator here is there are women. That's it.
Good stuff there. That was hard to watch. Fran was great, but I'm not sure about the person that was interviewing. And people have pointed out, I don't know if it's in the chat or in our in our Real Agriculture chat here, the team's just hacking on me. Kara pointed out that my hair was a lot thicker. My team is like pretty real with me. They're putting the real in Real Agriculture. That was awkward. I didn't know what to do with my hands. It was like, as Brian Voss said, kind of looked like Ricky Bobby doing an interview. I think that's a pretty good description. Yeah, absolutely. Fran brings up, I think, some really, really good points. I think one of the things that's kind of missing, as we've been lamenting that, there's no farm shows. I mean, everybody kind of misses that. I actually think this kind of fits into this discussion in the sense that one of the benefits of farm conferences and meetings and shows is the fact that people are able to get together. And some of this like unofficial sort of networking and ideas bouncing off in a room that's kind of really evaporated, and I think that's something that's really missing. And probably if it's a short term or a long term thing, but it definitely has an impact on the industry and people in it. I think that's something that's really kind of missing. One of the things that Fran also talked about is connecting with people, and this is the networking piece, connecting with people from totally different geographies. And that's one of the things I think that I really love about what we do at Real Agriculture is being able to connect people from different geographies, whether that's on agronomic education or that's issues that are happening in different parts of the country, realizing that, hey, we've got a lot more in common than differences. And that can also be the case in terms of mentoring, because I think one of the reasons why, if you were to go out to a peer and try to seek mentorship, you may be hesitant because you view that person as somewhat of a competitive peer, and you don't want to maybe sort of pull back the curtain, so to speak, on some of the things that you're going through and it being viewed as weakness. If you pick somebody if you're in BC and you have a mentor that's out in Atlantic Canada, there's probably less of a chance of that, and we see a lot of that kind of strategy in peer groups for sure. Paul says annual meetings were and are the best way, or great to have conversations with people that love agriculture. Absolutely agree, Paul. Absolutely agree. Whether it's over a beer, a scotch, or whatever. Kara says, she's not making fun of my hair. She has a serious comment. She says, some of the best mentorship I've had has happened in informal situations. Absolutely agree. Now, here's a question. And this comes up in a clip. This is from a Mind Your Farm Business episode that Lindsay Smith did. It is episode, I believe it's 37. I have it in my notes here somewhere. She talked to Deb Stark, former Deputy Minister for Agriculture in Ontario. And they had a great conversation about mentorship. And one of the things that Deb talks about is the difference between having a mentor versus a role model. And some of the people, I'll be honest, some of the people that I've considered to be a mentor, not necessarily they don't qualify as a role model, but they're somewhere in between. I have necessarily not gone the full Monty to mentorship. Deb is going to talk about the difference. Let's hear how she defines that.
I think there's a difference between a mentor and a role model, and both of them can be useful. And the difference is, with the role model, you are really hoping and establishing some kind of, with the mentor, with the mentor relationship, you're establishing some kind of a formal relationship. With the role model, you can kind of watch in the distance and study and, learn what you can. But with a mentor, you want someone who's going to spend some time with you, who's going to think about your what you need and what your particular situation is. So it's much more of a relationship. So I think in that way, you do need to do a little bit of homework. It's not just the smartest person in your sector. It is someone who is a good communicator, who's someone that you think can talk. I think it is better if you have some kind of a relationship at the beginning. You at least know them. So before asking them to formally go into a mentoring relationship with you, I'd want to have a few coffees, a few introductions, and just see whether or not there's someone you respect and really feel that you can learn from. I think taking that time up front is going to give you a better experience, and it's absolutely going to make better use of their time.
Mm-hmm.
That was episode 37 of the Mind Your Farm Business podcast. I encourage you to listen to that entire discussion. It is really, really fantastic. So there's a difference there between I have a mentor or mentors, and that person is a role model. And when I heard that, I thought of like, if a role model is more of a one-way relationship where, that person is maybe they're a celebrity CEO or they're a speaker that you've heard at numerous conferences. They're speaking to you and you're taking it in, and it's helping you change and do things better. But there's kind of not a two-way conversation. You're not being able to interact necessarily with them unless it's some sort of unique situation. So, maybe it's somebody you read in a book, things like that. Whereas a mentor is actually somebody that you are having some sort of interaction with. It's a face-to-face in traditional times, or now maybe it's a Zoom relationship. But I think very much you're learning from each other and being able to ask each other questions and really kind of working your way through some of the issues. So I thought Deb described that really well. And like I said, self-admittedly, I under her definition that she just gave there, I really don't have any mentors because I've never actually set up an official mentor relationship with anybody. There's people that I talk to on a frequent basis to go through certain problems and get their opinions, and I look for guidance. And I think in a couple cases I've actually even called them my mentor, but we don't have that true formal, like regular get-togethers and things like that. It's a little bit more ad hoc, but definitely much more of a role model kinds of situation. Not that there's anything wrong with role models. Let's look at what the audience is saying here. We got Devin says, role model gives direction, but a mentor helps you take the steps to get there and keep you on track. I agree, Devin. That's a really, really good way to put it, right? And that kind of speaks to the maybe a little bit more detail and a little bit more of that two-way, because that direction's important. But those steps, like a lot of us, like I know I struggle with this where I know where I am and I know where I want to get to. It's that piece in the middle is where, you kind of, that's where the mentor really, really fills some gaps for you and provides some help. Sean Stanford says, if you need a role model, Sean, I'm available. It's exactly the kind of role model I'm looking for, Sean. I would greatly appreciate that. I think we would definitely have some fun, especially over the Telegraph in downtown Lethbridge for sure. Devin says, the goal versus the grit. Yeah, good way to put it, Devin. Awesome. I like the way you're putting that for sure. Great stuff. Where do we want to go next here? Formal. You know what? Let's play the discussion in that interview with Deb Stark on the goals. So what are we actually really trying to accomplish when we have a mentor? So let's play that. Here we go. Here is a discussion about the goals.
Even in the informal one, I think the person who wants the mentoring needs to have a clear what they want from the mentor. So during my career, I've been asked by lots of people to be a mentor, and one of the first questions is what are you working towards? Because if you don't have that, it just becomes a nice conversation over coffee kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So you do need to spend that time and think about that. It doesn't have to be I want to move my farm business from pigs to cash crop in 6 months or over this season and, help me get there. Or I want to be the manager of my department in 6 months, help me get there. It can be that specific, but it can be more about, for instance, I used to mentor veterinarians who were in private practice and trying to decide whether or not they wanted to stop being the veterinarian on the farm and get a job with industry or government. And that's a big career decision. What might that look like? So they weren't clear yet, and they wanted to think it through. Those kind of things are ideal for a mentorship relationship. So because it gives you a little bit, it's not quite as concrete. So I guess I'm saying you can have a range, but you have to have something. If you just come, that's a real red flag for me as a mentor. If you just come and say, I'd like you to be my mentor, and you don't know why, you don't know what you want from me, I know it's not going to be, first of all, effective for you, and second of all, a good use of my time. I just won't know how to help you. I don't know what I'm working towards.
Oh, Deb Stark's great. That's a great podcast episode. Mind Your Farm Business. Check it out, episode 37. If you don't have that clarity, and if you don't have the clarity, then it's more the role model situation like Sean Stanford and I were just talking about, which is, hey, we're just going for a beer and we're talking about what's going on in the industry. And maybe I sort of bring up some of my problems or struggles that I'm, challenges that I have in my business. That's not exactly what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about a little bit more of a formal relationship where, hey, I'd like you to be my mentor, and here is why. I know you've gone through some of these same challenges. You ran a business in the same sectors, about the same size of company. You've gone through some of these challenges. Can you provide me with some guidance? I need some help working around this. And I think that's a little bit more of that formality where you're giving a bit of a path for the mentor to actually help you, as opposed to, oh man, I'm just lost. I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you help? Like, that's pretty open-ended. Even if we do feel that way some days. I know I do. One of the things that Deb talks about in that episode is the frequency of getting together. And she talks about how it really doesn't matter. It can be a case of where it is monthly, quarterly, annually, more ad hoc. But she says the frequency doesn't matter. What really matters is the fact that you have a bit of a plan. And that meeting has a bit of an agenda. And not the agenda where, there has to be some sort of formal minutes taken or anything like that, but it's just a case of here's the things we need to chat about. And the key there as well is make sure that you do your prep. So you're really insulting the process, according to Deb, if you just show up with no preparation. So saying, mentor, I want to go through. I want to better understand financial statements. Let's use that as an example. And in the process, you show up. That's fine. You have a topic, and you show up at the meeting, and you have no questions. You've really got no case studies or cases to show where it's like here's what I'm struggling with, or here's my numbers. You're keeping it at that 100,000 feet, and you really got to dive into some of the issues. And get down to those lower sort of levels and get into some of the details. So lack of prep is kind of an insult, and the mentor is going to kind of run out of interest if you're not showing enough interest in taking the time to do that. She also talks about if either side is continually canceling the meeting, it becomes very, very difficult, and there's sort of like avoiding it, like it's not a priority. Hey, we got something booked in 2 weeks. Can I just roll that over another 2 weeks, and it keeps on happening. I think it's that sort of is a sign that you really don't have this figured out in terms of having maybe the right mentor, or you don't have it figured out what it means to be a good mentee. Devin says, how to be a good mentee is a new space for a lot of people. I think so, Devin. Absolutely. I think a lot of times we focus on we're very kind of solutions-based people, like the business book industry, like the how-to is like, it's $1 billion industry in terms of books and seminars and speakers and all that kind of stuff. And not enough time is spent probably on what do I do about this? Where do I fit in this equation? So how do I make sure that I get the most out of this? Brian says 100% it's hard to help someone that doesn't ask anything. No kidding. It's just like, I need help. Like on what? I don't know, on just financial statements like that. That's you haven't done enough homework leading into that. Lara says the best mentor relationship I've had so far with my grad school supervisor, Dr. Diane Knight. Our backgrounds aligned. The goal for our project was clear. We didn't meet if there wasn't something specific to talk about, but kept constant communication. That sounds like a very, very positive relationship, Lara, for sure. Kara says, I like the meeting minutes from your mentorship with Shaun. Or you would like that? Yeah. Okay. Yes. If Stanford and I get together and we move on past the role model stage, because I may be looking for a role model, then I will for sure share those minutes with everybody. They will be probably is we'll look back on them as being as embarrassing as that video clip that we watched earlier for sure. Yeah, this is a topic that I think is really, really important. And I was on RFD TV earlier this morning, and I was talking about this because I was kind of preparing to kind of go through this show, and I think one of the keys here is that we're pretty proud people in agriculture. The independent thing, and independence is one of our best characteristics. You have to have independence to have the perseverance to go through some of the challenges I think that farmers and ranchers do on a yearly basis, especially when conditions are going against us. But a lot of times that independence can work against us too, where we don't really think we need help. Now, a lot of times we talk about this from a mental health aspect, but I think it also applies to the business aspect as well. And if it's okay for a Fortune 500 CEO that's getting paid, $10 million plus a year to have a mentor or a business coach, why can't we in agriculture? I just think that that's something that we just necessarily haven't latched onto before. And as the business and the industry becomes a little bit more complex in terms of running a business, I think this becomes much more of an important topic. And reminds me, I don't know, going back 10 years, I was, for 3 or 4 years, I was president of the local minor hockey association. And we put in like a coach mentorship program. Okay. And so the idea is that somebody that had a lot of experience in coaching at a lot of different levels. The person was also a teacher as well. He would come in, and once a month he would go on the ice with you, go through your practice plan, really kind of help you. You could ask questions and really provide kind of a learning sort of environment. Because a lot of people get into coaching because, one, no one would do it, or two, they like hockey. In this case, it was hockey. So what was interesting is some people really embraced it and sort of were able to say, hey, I like doing this. I like spending time with my kid. I was really good at this when the kid was 6 years old. Now that he's 13, I don't necessarily have all the adequate skills to be coaching, but here I am because nobody else will do it. And there was others that felt like, I played hockey my entire life. I know everything there is to know about this game. And you had to explain to people that the reality is that if somebody like Ken Hitchcock or Mike Babcock or pick any NHL coach, if they need and access and use a coach mentor, if you're coaching the Pee Wee D team in Picture Butte, don't you think you probably could use one too? Just it's okay. Just bury your pride a little bit. We all have a lot to learn. I think it's okay to be open about that for sure. Brian, watching on Facebook, says, my lawyer became my mentor in university, took his ag law course, and has stayed as my business mentor ever since. Keeps me grounded and asks the hard questions to make me really think things through. I think that's a perfect example, Brian. Congratulations, because it can be hard to find the right person to do that. And one of the things that Deb Stark, Fran Burr talked about in her interview is that, just because somebody was a mentor 10 years ago, those challenges might have been different. The challenges of today in your business, they could be maybe require different skills and different knowledge and different experiences to help you through it. So if you've been able to grow your business through all of the different growth stages and still have somebody that you trust and are able to rely on and kind of have that relationship, I think that's pretty awesome. Might not be the case for everybody, but I think that's pretty cool. So it's I think I got to find. I think it's a bit of a challenge for all of us, including myself, to maybe find try to think about this. What are some of the challenges that I have, and where are the gaps? And who would be the right mentor to set up more of that more formal sort of relationship with, as opposed to the informalities of a cup of coffee or a pint of beer. I really like the cup of coffee or a pint of beer, but maybe there'd be some benefits to taking it to that next stage. And I think that's a bit of a challenge for all of us to maybe think about that, do it. And I encourage you to check out the Fran Burr conversation, although I'm quite embarrassing in it, not very good. There is also the conversation with Deb Stark, episode 37, of the Mind Your Farm business. Brian says, also helps if I get into trouble that he's a lawyer. Also a good point. It's always good to have a lawyer right beside you, Brian, if anything sort of happens, and can bail you out of any sort of trouble that you have. I think this is a very, very important topic. I appreciate everybody's participation today, and share your thoughts with me. Are you a mentor? Are you a mentee? What has worked? What hasn't? And I think this is an area that we can really, really kind of explore together, and I would love your feedback on it. What is working and what is not? And are there things in this discussion that we kind of missed today that you think need to be brought up? And give me your thoughts too on Freestyle Friday. I kind of come up with the topic, and you brought up some as well, and kind of had some fun together and laid back and sort of chill out here on a Friday afternoon as the weather warms up a little bit outside. So send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Or on social media. Of course, you can find us at Real Agriculture. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page. Also, we're on Instagram. Kara and Lara and Lindsay and the gang have been doing a great job with Instagram for sure. Or you can call the RealAg listener line, 855-776-6147. 2 thumbs up for live streaming, 2 thumbs down for boring death by PowerPoint webinars. We do a little bit differently here at Real Agriculture. Thanks everybody for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Live. Have yourselves a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week. And don't forget to tune into RealAg Radio, 4:30 Eastern on Rural Radio 147. Cheers, everybody.